Would you suggest other people try to do a challenge like this or say
Yes.
like extend it? Okay. In 8 hours?
I would totally do it.
Or a
I don't know
percentage
if it
of their
matters.
normal process?
Yeah. I don't know if it matters what the time frame is. I would just say switch it up. If you spend 20 minutes on a video normally, spend 2 hours.
Yeah.
If you spend 45 hours, spend 20 or 10. Do something that's a meaningful difference.
So not even necessarily less.
No.
Just different.
Just
yeah.
different.
I like that.
I think about myself, I have these paths through video creation that I take. And it's the comfortable path. It's things that I know that I can do. It doesn't stretch me, but I know that it's pretty good. It's decent. And I think all of us are there on whatever level of competency that we have. We just take typically the path that is comfortable for us. And I think that that's the problem. There's no growth there. But if you kind of get outside of that path a little bit and realize, oh, if I had an extra hour, what could I do to my edit? Or what do I have to do to my edit with one less hour?
Welcome back to Creative Pals Podcast, and we're talking about a challenge that Nathan did, 8 hours of making a video. How long would you say it normally takes us to make a video?
Oh,
combined?
Man. Yeah, that's tough because you're right. So right now our process, I guess that's probably the first place to start here, is what our current process is. And like you said, it's both of us typically. Ideation.
Cody.
Yeah, and Cody, honestly. Wow.
So Cody spends about 20 hours per edit.
Yeah. Okay, so 20 hours.
So we're already at 20 hours.
And then let's look at, so editing 20 hours, ideation, we're probably 6 hours just to, I don't know. The ideation and research.
They blends together
so much. Sometimes
the ideation takes 20 minutes of, I had a great idea, let's do it. And then sometimes the ideation takes a long time. But if you combine ideation with research and kind of, I would say that's 3 hours between the two of us, probably an hour and a half meeting time at least.
Mm-hmm. Well, and in the past, we've even done sometimes a 3-hour session, ideation / planning session. Yeah. And then a second one for a video. So sometimes it's 6 hours a piece times 2. So 12 more there. Outlining is, another hour or 2. So we're probably somewhere between 40 and 50 hours of video.
Yeah. And you did one in 8 all by yourself.
8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the video was on Channel Makers, which is about YouTube strategy. And it was about thumbnails, which you didn't have the idea before you started the challenge. And I thought that was really key because that's part of it. Yeah. You don't, if you're trying to see how long it actually takes to make a video start to finish, you shouldn't get to know the topic ahead of time, I don't think.
That was probably the hardest part, was not thinking of I say that before, so we decided to do this challenge, and the day before the challenge, I was getting pretty nervous. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I kept going into ideation mode. Okay, what can I do here? Because it's all in my brain. No one would know. But I over and over kept trying to shut myself down. No, you can't think of an idea. And I didn't. I really had no idea where I was going to start. I did have a little bit of a plan of how I was going to come up with ideas, but there was no ideas pre-planned or prepped. And it was really hard to not pre-plan that part. Right.
Interesting. Okay. So you sat down, and how long was it before you decided on your idea? I think by the first check-in you were well on your way. So I checked in every 30 minutes roughly.
I think I had a pretty good idea within 30 minutes, and then I was really kind of fleshing it out the next 30 minutes to an hour probably.
So we get in early in the morning. We both get in a little after 6. Or I got in a little after 6. You're already here. And you're kind of setting up the set so that we could start filming right away. You start the challenge. I come back after 30 minutes. And you say you're doing a video about thumbnails and you're going to review over 200 thumbnails.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have only 8 hours to finish this video, including editing yourself.
Right.
You're going to plan, outline, script, film, upload, edit all by yourself. Yeah. By the end of the workday. And you're I'm also going to review 200 thumbnails. Yeah. And put that all in the spreadsheet. That's wild.
It probably wasn't the smartest idea, especially looking back, for a couple of reasons. I mean, as I looked, to ideate, I had planned to use some just ideation tools that we use. That's a whole nother topic, but just get some ideas, generally speaking, but not just ideas, but creative ideas, things that would, draw interest and make people want to click and that sort of thing. And so I got a couple different ideas, and there were some that were good, but they were just easy. They just felt easy. Top favorite niches was one of the ideas, top 25 niches to make money on YouTube. It's like, okay, I could pretty easily complete that video. I could go on to ChatGPT and say, give me 25 YouTube niches and then just make stuff up.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be hard, but I wanted the video to be somewhat substantive. And so I thought this option, while way more difficult, I thought it would be way more meaningful also. Even though I only had 2.5, 3 hours to do the research, I knew that I could pull something that would be meaningful from that data set.
Yeah. So you were confident that it would end up as a pretty good video.
Yeah, I think so.
And then,
I think so.
And then all the assets, really. I mean, It's not like you're going to show all 200 thumbnails, but you have to kind of show some of that in the video. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it gave me a big opportunity to have something to put on screen. Yeah. I wasn't definitely not going to be coming up with my own original, extra B-roll and all this. Like there just wasn't
you were going to do animations?
Sorry. No time for any of that. So yeah, the putting thumbnails up on screen I knew would help with retention and keeping things moving a little bit. But I knew that this was a big risk. It felt like a pretty big risk to pursue this idea. I knew it could turn out probably really good, or at least decently good, or it was just going to fail. Like I just literally wouldn't be able to complete looking at that many thumbnails. And I did have to adjust. Originally I had put like 250 to 500, and I ended up right around the 250 mark. So it was good that it was something where it felt meaningful to look at over 200 thumbnails. But I knew even if I didn't hit 500, it could still feel meaningful in the marketing of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much would you have liked to have been able to research? Like if you had infinite time.
Yeah.
It was a regular video.
Right.
How long do you think you would have let the research phase go? And how long did it take you during this challenge?
I would have probably liked to think through a little bit more of the direction of the research. Like what's the goal of me looking through these thumbnails? Because I pulled up specific criteria, and it ended up really turning into what visual elements are working on YouTube. And I would have liked to dive a little bit more deep into that. So I looked at, things like light thumbnails versus dark thumbnails, or, things like that. But I would have liked to look at things like, well, how many dark thumbnails have text, or how many dark thumbnails don't have text, like kind of combining different elements. And in order to do that, it just would have taken more time. Because essentially by looking at light versus dark, or text versus no text, if I know I have 250 thumbnails and 110 of them have text, well, then I know the other half of them don't. And so I kind of was able to hack the data gathering to some extent, so it took less time. But I probably would have liked at least a day or two. And I really think one thing that is valuable that we normally do is just talking through it. I didn't have anybody to do that with for this video. And it makes a really big difference to look over the data with somebody and then get some critical thinking going and say, okay, what does this really mean? And how does this impact creators? Like I was able to do some of that thinking myself, but I'm only one human brain, right? No. And there's only so much you can do by yourself.
Which I think is more realistic for our audience, because most likely they're going to be there by themselves. But I would be curious to see how the process would go if two of us were at it. Yeah. Because I was just kind of documenting your experience, which is another video we're going to put on the channel. So I'm really curious, was there any phase at all where you think it was kind of a good thing that you had less time, because it maybe didn't necessarily make the quality better, but the quality was about the same, kind of 80-20 rule, right? You got like 80% of the value with 20% of the time or effort. Like, or roughly, is there any step where you think, oh, I'm glad I was kind of rushed because I think it worked out just fine?
Maybe topics, just video topics. And here's why I say that. We've talked about on this podcast, I don't really think there are bad video ideas. And since that's the case, I think any of that's a different video you guys can go check out. But I think that since I believe that, any of the ideas that I came up with could be a good video. I talked about the niche ideas video. People love those videos. Yeah. Those have been historically successful.
That you wouldn't have just been giving people made up answers. Like, enough. Yeah. But.
So I could have done that. If I had more time, I probably would just kind of, hem and haw, try to, what one do I want to do? Which one appeals to me right now? When in reality, I should probably make all of them. It doesn't really matter which one I make first.
They'll morph anyways. Your original idea is often going to change, especially if you have more time. So pick something, start, and see where.
So I think being rushed, especially in that initial choosing the video topic phase, I think there was nothing wrong with that. Maybe it was like a little too fast. Like 30 minutes is pretty quick, but maybe limiting to an hour or whatever for us anyway. It could look different for everybody, but just having a list of ideas and going, okay, all of these are good, or we could turn them into something good. Let's just pick one rather than going, I don't know. Because to be completely fair, we have videos on our plan list that have been sitting there for months. And it's like, oh, this one makes me nervous, or this one feels a little overwhelming, or I don't know if I'm passionate about this topic right now. It's like, which all of those things are important, but at the end of the day, they can all be good video topics if you spin it in the right way.
I read something really interesting this week. Somebody said that with a lot of things related to like comfort or entertainment, you are satisfying a craving. So you're craving a burger, you satisfy that craving, or you're craving comfort, you're cold, you want to be warm, whatever. But with creativity, it's the opposite. Instead of calming that desire, you kind of flame that desire as you go towards it, as you like research or explore whatever your creative interest is, as you become more interested and pursue or put time into that creative thing, instead of it being satisfied, it's like the opposite. You want more of it.
Interesting.
I thought that was so cool and really applies to video creation or any content creation. It feels like maybe there's not a lot there. Yeah. But you really do get into it if you just get started.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I find that there's a video idea that maybe I'm not that interested in. As I start exploring it and diving into it, it's just like almost this excitement ignites. Yeah. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. It's not maybe that I love the topic, but it's just like the search and
you learn
the hunting.
To love it.
You're kind of learning to love it and exploring the process. And it just gets you excited.
Mm-hmm. It was really interesting. Yeah. What else was interesting to you about this process?
I think every time I do something that's just out of the ordinary, that's kind of breaking the mold of what we typically do, I learn a lot about our processes and things that I like about our processes and things that I don't. We've talked through some of those. It really drives home a lot of my personal preferences, because a lot of things that I did in the video were things that I was immediately capable of, right? It's like I have so much limited time, or so little time, I guess I should say, that I have to do probably what I'm best at, which anyone who goes watch the video, it's not going to blow you away. I'm not an amazing editor, but I know the paths through the editing software that will get me probably 80% of the way there. Mm-hmm. And then there's a couple little tricks that I know that I can add those in, and I should apply. And I did. I applied all those where I could within the time frame. So it just kind of reminded me of the things that I would consider myself generally proficient at, but then also the things that I'm very not good at, because like when I was trying to do the thumbnail, I realized I didn't have Photoshop on my computers. And it's like, well, okay, even if I did have Photoshop, I'm not that great with Photoshop, especially compared to Cody. And so I was like, well, how am I going to do a thumbnail? I have to get a thumbnail done. So I ended up in Canva. Well, I have Canva on my laptop, but I don't have it on my desktop. So I had to figure out my login and, anyway, it's like there was issues along the way, but it just slows me down. But then I get into Canva and I go, okay, there's even things in Canva that I'm not really sure how to do, that I'd like to do for the concept that I drew up. And I just realized, like, even as a creator, essentially a full-time creator, that's what we do here all the time, I am very limited in my skills. And luckily in my day-to-day, I don't run into that all the time. Like, we kind of, we're on camera mostly, and Cody does most of the editing and the thumbnail design. But it just reminded me, like, I should be stretching myself a little more in some of these other areas, not only so that we can work with other people and talk with other people, but just for me as a creator.
To understand things more thoroughly. That's amazing. How exhausted were you at the end, and how feasible do you think it would be to do this more often?
I was wiped.
Yeah.
I was really, really tired. I probably could have done a little bit better job, like pacing myself. I don't even know if maybe that's true, but I really didn't take a break in that 8 hours. I was editing, and I was chomping down a granola bar and a Red Bull. It's just like, that was the only time that I took to like actually refuel. There was a time probably, 5 hours in, where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it, like just energy wise. Yeah. It's like, I'm pretty tired. You end up getting a little sloppy and just, you're not thinking quite sure. There was some times where my head was just kind of spinning. Like, I don't even know what to do next. My laptop won't work. My editor won't work. And I was like, okay, I just need to calm down. I got to get a little snack, And so I was pretty wiped the rest of the day. How feasible is it for other creators? It's hard to say. Everyone's video creation process is so different. And to be completely fair, a lot of times after we just record a video together, I feel exhausted, even after a 30-minute recording session. And so this 8 hours really did feel like a crazy mix between a sprint and a marathon.
Yeah. And you're doing so many things you're not used to doing. I think that's the kicker.
And I think that's the kicker, is just like, I haven't edited a full length video in, I think it was like 45 days.
Right.
It's just like I was a little rusty. My editor needed to be updated. It's like there was just these other things that I kept running into that were just overly exhausting since it was outside of my normal job description, air quotes.
Yeah. Would you suggest other people try to do a challenge like this or say like extend it? Okay. In 8 hours?
I would totally do it.
Or a percentage of their normal process?
Yeah. I don't know if it matters what the time frame is. I would just say switch it up. If you spend 20 minutes on a video normally, spend 2 hours. Yeah. If you spend 45 hours, spend 20 or 10, you know, but do something that's a meaningful difference.
So not even necessarily less.
No.
Just different.
Just
yeah.
different.
I like that.
I think about myself, you know, like I said earlier, I have these paths through video creation that I take. And it's the comfortable path. It's things that I know that I can do. It doesn't stretch me, but I know that it's pretty good. It's decent. And I think all of us are there on whatever level of competency that we have. We just take typically the path that is comfortable for us. And I think that that's the problem. There's no growth there. But if you kind of get outside of that path a little bit and realize, oh, you know, I can do this. If I had an extra hour, you know, what could I do to my edit?
And you might even find something that's more efficient.
Yeah.
That isn't going to cost the video any quality that you're going to keep doing forevermore.
Yep.
Just by having that restraint, you learn a hotkey or like what you did with the data of kind of figuring it out based on what you already knew instead of running the numbers again. And so I think tricks like that are really valuable in your kind of tool chest long term.
Totally. And there was one example that I'll share. Right when I started, I was like, okay, I know that I want some visuals, but I'm not a graphic designer. I can't come up with anything cool. And Cody will often use this really cool whiteboard design that I don't know who came up with it or how.
It's like a top-down shot of our desk, but the desk is actually a whiteboard. But it just looks really cool. Like it has some props in it. It's got some markers and like a keyboard, and it looks so good.
Yeah. Anyone who watches Channel Makers, you may not even have recognized that that's actually our desk. Like I think he might have taken a really cool picture and probably dressed it up a little bit to make it look really good. I didn't have that asset, and I knew that I wanted to have some sort of common background theme anytime I put text up on the screen. And so I just went in and I arranged a couple things on the desk, turned on the light for the filming light, and I just snapped a picture on my phone. And I went into Canva and tweaked it a little bit. And then I was able to use that the rest of the video. And
I was surprised how close you got. I want to explain. Like, so with this top-down shot, when Cody's doing it, and to Cody's credit, he does it perfectly.
Yeah, he does it really good.
But he like gets the top-down camera set up. The other day, he's doing it because I wanted to do something, like draw a whiteboard thing that we don't normally do. So he comes in with this meter. I don't even know what it's called. I don't even know what it is. He explained it, and I can't remember what it was. He said... like looks like a little, almost like one of those temperature reading guns. And he has it and he points it like towards the camera and says, okay, the camera is exposing at this amount. And I'm like, well, don't you look at the camera for that exposure? I don't know what he was doing. Okay. But that is how like perfect he is and technical. Not to mention the glares that the light causes on this reflective whiteboard.
It's hard to get around.
It's hard.
Yeah.
But like your 80% of version of that looked surprisingly good.
It looked okay. Like it definitely wasn't perfect. I had some things that I wasn't quite happy with it. But like you said, the alternative for me was to just have the video of me running the head, you know, kind of head on shot and just put a basic text on the screen. Right. But by just, you know, taking a quick photo of something that looked semi-nice. Yeah. It really dressed it up a little bit and it made a bit of a difference. It's not like the biggest difference and it didn't look perfect. Like if you compared Cody's next to mine, it doesn't look like Cody's.
Right. But the thing is, so for us long term, it makes sense to do the Cody level effort, have those saved as templates. Great. We have the resource too. We have Cody and all his knowledge. Right. But if you are trying to replicate this, whoever is creating your own videos, you can get so close. And the thing is, people aren't going to see Cody's version. Right. Right? They're not going to see the version of yours that's 20% better or 50% better. They're just seeing the version you did. And I think that's something so important to remember when you're feeling like a perfectionist, like you know it could be better. Well, get it as good as you can. And they're not going to be thinking about that because they don't have that side by side to compare it to. Yeah. So just try it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I don't even think you and Cody have seen my thumbnail yet.
No,
it's pretty bad.
That's the part you feel the worst about, right?
I think I feel the worst about the thumbnail. The whole design factor is really tough for me for multiple reasons. Yeah. I suffer from color blindness and
it's a
hard thing. Like I literally just can't make something look good, you know, from a color standpoint. So I definitely have some problems there, but just the limitation especially compared to what we normally do on the channel to what I made, I can just put one of Cody's thumbnails next to mine and go, this doesn't even look like it belongs on the same channel. And to me, that's probably more of the problem. I think the thumbnail could probably perform fairly decently just on a random channel. I think we're still going to run it and just see how it does. And we'll talk about that probably in another episode.
We're going to use the A/B tester,
yes,
which we have, and we have secrets about. And we revealed them on a different Creator Files episode. It didn't get a lot of views because we didn't really advertise it a lot. I think it's hilarious. It's big. I can't believe nobody's talked about this yet. Yeah. Anyways.
Go watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to A/B test probably against one of Cody's thumbnails and then my thumbnail just to see how it does. And I guess what I can say is, even though it's not great, it was the best I could come up with.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it runs. I have a feeling it won't be too far off.
Do you think without the time crunch, how much better could you do?
Probably not much.
Okay, interesting.
Pretty much. I mean, I finished the 8-hour challenge about 20 minutes. I kind of got to a point where I was like, editing, I definitely could have done some more stuff. But as far as the thumbnail goes, there really wasn't much. I could have come up with a totally different concept. And I even thought about that, was just coming up with a totally different, more simple concept. And I could have done that. But when I did my original ideation, I did use a secret tool. And it came up with some ideas that I really, really liked. And I tried to get sort of close to what those concepts look like. And I didn't do them justice.
Okay, it wasn't a lack of idea. It was not being able to kind of match that. Yeah.
And what if I had 8 hours, I could figure it out on Photoshop because the concept wasn't really that difficult. And I don't know how to do that on Photoshop right now, but I'm a quick learner. I know how to go on YouTube, you know, like I could figure it out. Could Cody do it in 20 minutes? Yeah. But I could figure it out if I had more time. But there was definitely some limitations of my knowledge and then some tool limitations. Canva just couldn't do some of the things that I needed it to do. So yeah, I kind of maxed it. For that concept specifically, I kind of maxed out my knowledge and Canva's capabilities.
Anything else you want to say about the challenge?
No, I would just reiterate, do it. I just think creators should just do it. You know, we've done some fun challenges in the past. We did one quite a while ago where we tried to film 52 videos in 24 hours. Some of the worst videos we've ever made, to be completely honest. But I learned so much about being on camera. We did an on-camera challenge, a 30-day on-camera challenge. Every time we do something like that, I learn something so much. And sometimes it's not one takeaway, sometimes it's two, sometimes it's three, but I grow. I feel like as a creator, I grow. I become more aware of how I can improve or things that I do well, which is also valuable. Again, it was the same with this. I feel like there's some pretty significant takeaways that I learned about just me and how I work through processes and things that I could do better. So I think just being willing to challenge yourself a little bit. And I know on an individual creator level, it's hard to do that, especially if you feel like you're at the end of your resources all the time. But if you feel like, you know what, I only have 5 hours to do a video this week, try one in 2 hours, you know? So like there are ways to kind of get around that, but I get it. It's tough to do. It's tough to step outside of the box, especially if you already feel uncomfortable with the process.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that just taking a breath when it gets hard is the solution? Or do you think maybe coming back to the next day or just stick with the challenge no matter what and publish no matter what? Or is it okay to give yourself that out of if this is really bad, I don't have to publish it?
I wouldn't give yourself the out.
Mm-hmm. That's a big difference between.
It is a big difference.
If we hadn't touched on this, I think a lot of people would go in it like almost half in it. Like I'll for sure try to finish it in a day, but I don't have to.
Yeah. We talked about this. You and I went back and forth on this.
We did.
For almost the whole day before we did the challenge. It was like, well, what if the video you make's not good? It's like, well, that's definitely a possibility. Like that's a risk.
With a channel of our size, it feels, I want to say more serious, but I'm sure to small creators it feels serious too.
Oh yeah. I think it would totally feel serious. And there definitely is a risk. I mean, running the thumbnail I created, it will have an impact on the video, and it will probably be not as good as if we just, whipped one up and had Cody put it on there. So there's definitely a risk, but I think when you give yourself the out, you just don't work as hard. I think I went pretty hard because I knew we were going to publish.
It was going to have to
be. I knew it was going to have to be at least the best that I could do. And then if your audience is questioning you, just say, hey, I tried something new this time. Yeah. If you don't like it, just let me know exactly what you think, and I'd be happy to change it. Like, I think if you approach it that way, your audience will understand.
It's funny when you call things out yourself, the audience is so forgiving. If you don't, they're going to rake you over the coals.
Yeah.
Also, I'd be curious, how many of you listening have never published a video before? Just like want to start a channel, haven't started a channel. If that's the case, you have nothing to lose. Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. In that case, give yourself 2 hours.
Right.
I was just actually talking to somebody who's outside of the creator space, and they said they tried to make a video and it took them like 10 hours to edit their first video. And he said it was like a simple, maybe 1 or 2 minute video. I was like, wow, like that.
Such a learning curve.
There's such a learning curve. And so I say do it in 2 hours. And, you know, that's me coming from a place where I know an editing software, even one just to use. So just do your best. But I think getting started is key. Figure out a process that works and then break it. Try something new. If you like it, great. If you learn something from it, great.
You'll learn.
You'll learn.
You will.
Yep.
Yeah. Whether it's what you need to know for that video or a future video, you're going to learn. So next week, we're going to talk about the thumbnails and kind of what you learned about thumbnails during this video and what you wish you could have done differently.
Whole discussion there about thumbnails.
And we're going to publish the video by that episode. And then we will give you an update.
We'll see how it performs.
On how it performs. The goal was as well as the other videos. So we have a criteria to meet. We'll let you know if we met it. So
okay.
Thanks for listening.
See you guys.